Oral History Open House. Today we have a very exciting and inspiring informational session to share with all of you this evening. So our agenda is pretty simple. We're going to talk about the background of this oral history project. We're going to discuss why oral history is important, and then we're going to take some time to answer any questions you all may have. Before we really get into the substance of this presentation, we do want to share the many ways that you can participate during this presentation. We are using a platform called Mentimeter, and so you can access the presentation at www.menti.com using the code 70499322. There is a question and answer button. So at any point during the presentation, if you have a question that you'd like to ask or a comment that you'd like to make, you can go ahead and do it there. We are also presenting this presentation on Facebook Live through the Omaha Housing Authority's Facebook page. If you would like to ask a question or leave a comment, you are more than welcome to leave that comment in the comment section, and we will do our best to monitor that and give or present any questions at the end that are from the Facebook page. And finally, we are presenting via Zoom. So there is that lovely chat bubble that says chat underneath it. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can also do so right in that section as well. So we'd like to start by introducing ourselves so that you all can get familiar with who we are and who you're speaking with. I'll start. My name is Laisha Goodwin. I am a neighborhood planner with the City of Omaha Planning Department. And so this project is a collaborative effort between the City of Omaha, the Omaha Housing Authority, our community partners like Canopy South, and our friends at the National Public Housing Museum in Chicago, Illinois. Let's see, Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mark Jaschke, and I am the Oral History and Programs Coordinator at the museum, and I'm really excited to be able to spend some time with you this evening to share out not only a little bit about our project, but also the ways in which you can get involved if you feel inclined to do so. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Mark. Tiff, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Laisha. So my name is Tiff Beatty. I use she, her pronouns, and I am currently the Program Director of Arts, Culture, and Public Policy at the National Public Housing Museum, which is just a fancy way of saying that I work really closely with Mark and another colleague who's here in the meeting, Shakira, to facilitate our oral history program, which we're going to learn a lot about today, as well as our entrepreneurship hub, which works with residents who are entrepreneurs and have businesses and want to get involved and connect with other residents that way. And then finally, we do public programming. So putting on events and meetings like these is sort of within the realm of my responsibilities. I'm so glad to be here and looking forward to getting to meet everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiff. How about Shakira? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shakira Johnson. I use she, her pronouns. I am the oral historian on staff for the National Public Housing Museum, also the assistant educator on staff. I'm one of the people who actually goes out and, now virtually, but records these stories, shares these wonderful experiences with people, and there to help build those moments and emphasize the importance of the narrator's voice. So nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Cesar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Cesar Garcia, Executive Director of Canopy South, which is the community organization working in partnership with the City of Omaha and Omaha Housing Authority in the revitalization of Southside Terrace Indian Hill neighborhood. So happy to be here today.
Thank you, Cesar. Crystal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name's Crystal Sierra. I'm the project manager for Canopy South. I work really closely with Cesar. I'm super excited about today's meeting because I remember when this was just kind of a dream months and months ago. So I'm glad that we're taking all the steps to get the ball rolling. So really happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Lauren, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lauren Leitner. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the intensive services manager with Omaha Housing Authority, so I am dedicated to working with Spencer and Southside Terrace residents to support the needs that they have and be kind of the collaborator between residents and all the amazing organizations that we're working with.
Awesome. Kelly, are you able to introduce yourself?
I am. Hi, everybody. Kelly Johnston Dorsey with the City of Omaha. And I have the great fortune of working with both the CNI and CMP grants, so both Spencer Homes and Southside Terrace. And I'm really excited we have this opportunity, and I can't wait to hear everyone's stories.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And one other person who is not with us at this time, but also Mariana Forel. She is a fellow neighborhood planner with the City of Omaha, and she's also collaborating on this project. One final partner that I'd like to acknowledge is all of you who are on this presentation and those of you in the community who will be participating with the oral histories. We really wouldn't have a project if you all weren't participating. So we thank you for your time and participation with this effort. To get to know one another a little bit better, we're going to do a quick icebreaker. So again, this is where the Mintymeter comes into play. If you are participating in Mintymeter, we want to do a little activity. If you were to write an autobiography or a story of your life, what would the title be? And we're going to start the countdown now. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to participate in the Mintymeter. You wrote an autobiography, what would the title be? I'm gonna practice what I preach and play a little bit too. Alrighty. So we got a few that have populated in there. So one person said their autobiography would be entitled, "Do you have a second?" That sounds interesting. Do I have a second? The other one is "Full of Grit." Wow, that sounds like a really empowering story. Very cool. This one was mine. "The house plant becomes a garden." I have a thing about referring to myself as a house plant. Very cool. Well, thank you for participating. Something to know for those of you who are watching a little bit later on, the Mentimeter web page for this presentation will be up until the 28th. So you have 2 weeks to participate in all of these polls that we're doing today. Well, thank you for participating in that little icebreaker. Moving right along. So the purpose today and the purpose for this project is really best explained by this quote from Michelle Obama. And it says, "There's power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, in owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice." We're here today to talk about why and how your personal story, your lived experience is powerful, how there's inherent justice to that, and how sharing your story can have a positive impact. A little bit of background about how we exactly got to talking about oral history. So in 2019, the City of Omaha Housing Authority and our community partners, Canopy South and 75 North, or the Highlander, we received 2 grants from HUD. The first grant was for the North 30th Street area. It's a $25 million grant. Project period is about 5 years, and that's an implementation grant. The other one is in the Southside Terrace Indian Hill neighborhood, and that was a $1.3 million grant over a 3.5-year period, and that's a planning and action grant. And within these grants, there's 3 key focuses. There's housing, so making sure that distressed housing is replaced with high quality housing that's meeting the needs of the people who've lived in public housing, whether it's need more square footage because they have a large family, or they just want options. Not everyone wants to live in a single family house. Some people like townhomes, but there's just a variety of needs. The second is to improve the lives of the people who are living in public housing. And the third is to invest in what people value, invest in the assets and amenities that are needed and are important to people in the community. And with all of these focuses and with the overall goal of these projects, there's a lot of changes that are going to happen in the North 30th Street area with Spencer Homes and in the Southside Terrace Indian Hill neighborhood. A lot of things are going to take place. A lot of things are going to change, and some things take a lot of time. Like, you don't build housing overnight. You don't build, community assets overnight. But what our project teams have been doing, or stakeholders have been doing, are these smaller projects that really focus and get the attention and get the leadership of the people who are going to be impacted by these changes. And so when we were thinking about, engaging residents, we felt that oral history was an excellent opportunity to not only check the boxes of housing people in neighborhoods, but to really speak to people's lived experiences surrounding them and really giving people the reins to talk about their story and what's going to change and what hasn't changed over time. So that was really important. But also we talked about the fact that there tends to be an overarching narrative about the projects, right? But it's really important that individual people who have really lived in those places and spaces, they know what their neighborhood's like, they know what the people are like, that they share their unique stories, and that uniqueness shares and sheds light on the broader picture. So in talking about and dreaming up a project, an oral history project, we discovered the National Public Housing Museum, came across a really cool project, and that they're working with folks in public housing, and it really felt like something we wanted to be a part of. Don't want to steal National Public Housing Museum's light, so they'll talk a little more about what they do, and you'll actually get to experience some of their work this evening. So that's a little bit of the background of this project. Let's do another activity. We know we have a diverse audience here tonight, but if you currently live in public housing, or if you have lived in public housing in the past, where did you or where do you currently live? It's a little bit shorter activity, so we're going to do a 30-second timer. Where do you currently live if you live in public housing, or if you lived in public housing in the past, where did you live? So you can see some dots populate on there. Okay, so we had a couple of participants who indicated, so some in the Spencer Homes area, and then some in the Southside Terrace area. So about a 50-50 split, very cool. So the really big thing that we want you all to take away today is that the physical appearance and some of the things going on in the neighborhoods, they're going to change, but people like you, your story is alive within you. And so it's really important that you share it, because it can have a positive impact I think Amanda Gorman, poet laureate, said it best: for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. And so really just sharing the stories that, you know, people, there's going to be a generation that never sees Spencer Holmes, for example, but they can hear the stories of the people that lived there and remember what the community was like and carry that spirit. I would now like to turn the presentation over to the National Public Housing Museum so that their team can talk about what you all can expect when you choose to participate in an oral history project.
All right, so we're going to be highlighting some key points that I think are really kind of representative of not only our practices for doing oral histories, but really these are like steps that you're also going to be participating in when you sign up to record with us. So I'm going to be talking about the collaborative and ethical keystones. So the first one is collaborative. So from the first steps of scheduling your recording time, that is going to be based completely on your schedule, to the interview itself that is going to be very much driven by what you choose to discuss, all the way to the archival process, where we work together to write keywords for your story. We want to make sure that your experience is allowed to have, you know, the center point of whatever, you know, future use for your story ends up becoming. We really think that it's important for you to have agency over your story. And that doesn't really happen without this being a process that is about really creating a meaningful relationship with you and the museum, despite our differences, despite our distances. We're really excited to be able to bridge that gap with Zoom through this new digital period that we're in. And then I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the ethical parts. So ethics is also a really important part that does fall in line with the collaborative point as well. We believe that sharing an oral history is a mutually beneficial experience for both the museum and for yourself. You'll be preserving your history for future generations of residents, activists, and researchers, as well as for your own legacy. While recording, we work to create a safe space for you where you are the expert and you get to share your story with us. When your story is archived, you will also have the ability to control how your story is listened to and by whom your story is listened to and how it is used, not just in the museum, but future use in general.
All right, thank you, Mark. And now we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling. So that and silence, right? So storytelling, everybody has a story. I have a story, you have a story. I don't think mine will be as interesting as yours, of course, but everybody has a story to tell. And we want to make sure when you're doing this process and when you're interested in giving a story, that you feel comfortable in the space to be able to open up and share your experiences and allow us to be a part of those experiences because they matter and they're truly important and we want to hear them. And you never know how many people may have experienced the same things that you've experienced until you help tell your story. So I think that's really the wonderful part about actually doing this work and recording oral histories. Silence allows the person to gather their thoughts. So sometimes in the actual recording, we will use I'll use moments of silence to give the narrator another chance to think of anything they want to add. Also to share experiences that they want to share. So we don't want to feel like it's rushed at all. We would like you to go wherever you would like to go with the story. And it's truly about your experiences. So whatever you choose to share is meaningful all around. And then the best stories come with patience. So take your time to gather your thoughts. And we're here to listen. So it's not really about it. It's never about us recording the story. It's about you sharing the experiences that you feel comfortable with us. And we'll never like push you to talk about anything that you don't want to talk about.
Yes, thank you, Shakira and Mark. And I really don't have too much to add to that, but I do just want to dig in a little bit more to this idea of narrator agency. So we use the word narrator in oral history methodology to talk about our storytellers, to put them in a position as we are doing this work that this is the person that's telling the story. They're the narrator of their own story. And so all of our oral histories really focus on what the narrator or the interviewee is most interested in. And the narrator becomes, as Mark was talking about, a collaborator, but we also use the words co-curator. So we're really putting these stories together next to each other and telling a variety of stories so that there's never just one story that will be told. And so together we become co-curators, and then the narrator also receives a copy of the interview. So you also are a co-owner of the interview. So it's just as much your interview as a person giving your story as it is the collector or the museum in this case. And the primary way that we approach this is through open-ended questions. And the reason why is because open-ended questions, they don't assume anything. And as Shakira mentioned, they help us tell stories. And it also it provides a more free-flowing, open conversation. So open-ended questions can't be answered with a yes or a no. And there's lots of different sort of ways that we'll approach this, but really the idea is just to start with a very open question about you and your life. And then really, we just want to hear from you anything it is that you would like to tell us that is important to you. And I'll pass it back to Mark. I think he's gonna actually play us a story as a part of, I talked a little bit about this co-curator model that we have. And so part of the curation of our stories comes through our programming. And Mark can talk a little bit about the program that this clip is gonna come from.
Yeah, so over the last year, the museum, originally in the pre-pandemic world, we've been collecting, as we've been talking about, we've been collecting stories. And one of the ways right now, since our archive is not right now ready for the public in terms of our full archive at the museum. So what we decided to do was create a monthly audio listening series that's entitled Out of the Archives, that used to center around a theme that like spoke to a different facet of public housing. So this first clip that you're going to be hearing right now comes from our first episode, actually, which focused on entrepreneurship in public housing. The series since then has kind of evolved a little bit, where it's a little bit more the curation's a little bit more organic, where we're not necessarily looking for a theme. Rather, we're listening to the stories in their entirety. We, as in Shakira and myself, are listening to the stories in their entirety and then picking out important parts. And then, you know, when we put them together, it's funny because you usually will find some sort of link in stories that could be from New York or from Chicago or eventually from Omaha, that might not have been apparent until you kind of put them together. So like I said, the series has evolved a little bit. You can check up there. You can go visit, and I'll post a link in the chat to listen to more episodes of this series. Again, this is called Out of the Archives, and this is a story from Godfrey Bay, who lived in the Abla homes here in Chicago.
We used to have a lot of entrepreneurial businesses, merchants that would come through with special services. One of them that came to mind that stays in my mind is it was a guy that lived, it was a black man, we never knew his name, but he lived in the 15 stories. And when they say the 15 stories, they're talking about the housing development that was on Loomis between Roosevelt and 14th Street up to Ashland. So I don't know where he came from specifically at that area, but he would leave out his house every morning with a cooler full of homemade tamales that he made out of grits. And you talk about to die for. He never got past Crenshaw and True before he would sell out, because people would just take all his tamales. In order for him to try to get to other parts of the area, he'd have to go down Loomis or go around the other way. But every time people see him, when he opened up that cooler, and because he kept the tamales hot, he would sell them tamales all day, and they were perfect. He made the perfect tamale. That man left an impression of how people can go about and being entrepreneurial. Another guy, Mr. Charlie. Mr. Charlie was the watermelon man. And you know he's cutting because he had a song, Watermelon, oh, come and get your watermelon, hot and sweet, sweet cold watermelon. And you hear it, and people come out and then get his watermelon, and he eventually sold enough watermelon to buy his own home for him and his wife.
On behalf of the National Public Housing Museum, and that's where you can keep listening after this presentation is done to more episodes.
Yes, thanks for that, Mark. Love that story, and no pressure if you give your story to sing. Obviously, if you have a song to offer, we appreciate it, we love it. But it really does just show what that story in particular just shows that how narrators really bring themselves, and we really appreciate that. And now we just want to talk a little bit about why folks choose to do this. And we also will follow up with the question for you all. So maybe just start now thinking, why would you possibly want to preserve your oral history? And if you're not sure yet, maybe think for someone else. Why would someone in your community be thinking that this might be a good opportunity? And these are just some of the reasons that we've heard from folks. So legacy building is a key one, especially as a museum. We are the only institution in the United States dedicated to preserving the history of public housing. So this is really a unique opportunity to be a part of a collection of stories and a legacy building opportunity, so that this archive will be inclusive and comprehensive and will represent the legacy of the people of public housing. And this would be an opportunity if you're someone who is interested in passing on your legacy, your family's legacy, this is an opportunity to do that and to have your story preserved in a museum so that folks in the future can actually look back and trace even their history possibly to you and your story, or they'll just learn, researchers and scholars and artists, will just learn about what it was really like in your own words to live where you lived in your community and sort of the background that you come from. Advocacy is another reason that we want to share with you all in terms of why folks do this. The opportunity to really play audio like the one that you heard today and to make a case for supporting entrepreneurs and informal economies that rise up, and the different barriers that folks run into as they are just trying to make a living, but then also the joy and the richness of the communities that are told, and how those stories can be played for policymakers, folks that don't necessarily get to hear these everyday stories. I think this is a unique opportunity as we're working with the City of Omaha and some community partners to really think about how do we influence decision makers through everyday stories. And this is an opportunity to possibly do that. And there is no limit to how these stories can be shared and possibly curated or used as support for a white paper or anything that folks are really doing as their activism in terms of trying to make a difference and make a change. So legacy building, advocacy, I'm sure there are other reasons, or if you all relate to those reasons, we would love to hear from you. So this is another opportunity to participate in the Minty.com. So if you haven't yet went to that website, open up another tab, either on your phone or your laptop, and type in Minty.com and the code, and then let us know I think Laisha will probably give us a timer, but let us know why oral history matters to you. And we would love to see what folks are thinking and share that out. And so we'll give you, 1 minute, and we appreciate all of your input on this. That's real. That's real. I mean, especially with this history, the history of public housing, I think we are all in this room very aware of the severity of the situation that we find ourselves in terms of housing. And I think that we need to really sort of look at history and really think through how we are responding to the lessons that we haven't yet learned, and to put this in context. The history books do not document the histories that we know are important, and we have to really preserve this history. And so that is really great. I think as a community, to know our history is super important and super empowering. So I really appreciate that answer. Thank you. All right, now we'll go ahead and pass it over to Shakira, and she'll her and Mark will tell you a little bit if you are now convinced that you should be preserving your oral history, which we hope you are. And if you have more questions, we can also be available for that. But Mark and Shakira are gonna tell you how you can get involved and what that process is like.
Yeah, thank you. Give me 1 second. Trying to stabilize my Wi-Fi. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry.
While we're waiting on Shakira, if you all take a peek in the chat, if you're on Zoom, Mark has dropped the sign up and scheduling link in the chat. So if you are convinced and persuaded, you can go ahead and start signing up.
You all hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. So for the first step,
Oh, you just muted
You're
yourself.
muted. Shakira, you're muted.
yeah, sorry, it keeps going in and out. Give me 1 moment. I'm sorry.
Maybe try without the video.
Mark, why don't we just take care of this part, Mark?
Yeah, that's fine.
Shakira,
Like Laisha said, I just dropped a link in the chat, which will also be made available after this this meeting is over. And basically, you're gonna fill out your information, and then we'll get in touch with you to find out what times work best. You can let us know if email or phone is your preferred method of contact, and then we, like our oral historian, Shakira, and you will just kind of work together to figure out what your work schedule looks like, what other responsibilities and things you have on your plate might be, so you can find a time to link up, and then you will be recording your story, which will be done over Zoom, or you can also call in to Zoom, and that link will also be provided to you. Most interviews run about an hour and a half. Some are shorter, some are longer, but be prepared to be online for that amount of time. And after the recording is done, you're going to be working with with Shakira or possibly myself to fill out our release form, which will go through different legalities that you need to just make sure that you sign off on when you're submitting your story to our archive, and from there, the story is going to be your story will be sent back to you. It'll be sent to the City of Omaha, and it'll be stored in our people-centered oral history archive. Will be made available to the general public. And the other important parts about the post-interview that aren't mentioned here, sort of like I was saying earlier, is whenever your story will be used in, or whenever we want to be using your story in something like out of the archives, in an exhibition, or down the line, if someone wants to use it for their own research or for a book or a movie, we'll be in touch with you. You'll give us, all your contact information, and we'll get in touch with you, and just make sure that everything's okay with you. There's a point in the release form where you can kind of add in your own amendments to it, and just anything that's specifically for you and your story that you want us to know prior to it being archived. So that's essentially that's the process for you.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm fixed now on this end. And yeah, I think one of the things I want to emphasize that Mark touched a little bit about is we'll contact you and schedule time that you're available. So by any means, you don't have to worry about making it more convenient for us. It's all when you're available, when you're ready. So there's no rush in the process at all. Although we would love to hear your story. Yeah, so just don't feel like you're rushed into like picking a set time that you have stuff to do, because we know that your time is important, your story is important, but your everyday life is important as well. And we want to make sure that we're honoring that and not just scheduling you when you don't have time. So it does, like Mark said, it takes about an hour and a half. I usually like to log in about 15 minutes ahead, just in case for technical problems, if you have any problems logging in. But yeah, we just really like to emphasize the importance of your voice and your time, and we respect it.
Thank you so much, National Public Housing Museum team. We really appreciate that thorough dive into how people can sign up, why oral history is important. I think that was really informative. We do have some what if questions that may have come across your mind over the course of the presentation. One, we believe that the more people that will participate in this project, the more successful it's going to be. So if you want to tell your friends or your family about this opportunity, we highly encourage you to do so. Either the link that Mark dropped, that's an Airtable link, this HTTP tiny URL is the same link that you can refer people to sign up for oral histories. I personally know of a lot of family who's lived at both Spencer and Southside Terrace. I've been telling them, they're probably tired of me now, but been really encouraging them, like, hey, tell your story. This is a really cool opportunity. A second thing that we've thought about, we know may be a barrier, but it shouldn't be, is if people don't have a computer or a smartphone. We believe that it's very important that everyone, no matter what tools and resources they do or do not have, should be able to participate. So if you want to participate, but technology is a barrier, our team, so OHA, Canopy South, and the city, we have office hours at one of the units at Southside Terrace. So that's at 5609 South 30th Street. And at that satellite office, we have access to laptops and computers. So if you come either on Tuesday or Wednesday between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m., we can be of assistance, as well as Thursdays from 4 to 6. We can also be flexible if we have enough lead time to meet someone within reason to do an oral history interview with Shakira and the team. For folks at Spencer Homes, you can call Lauren Leitner, who is on this chat, at 444-6900, extension 2268, or you can send her an email if you have a technology barrier but want to participate in this project. And finally, if you have a friend or a family member that wants to participate, but they don't speak English or English isn't their primary language, we recommend that, say, if you have a grandmother who speaks May, for example, but wants to share her story, that, you know, a grandchild or a daughter or a son could join in with them during the interview as a form of translation. Again, I think it's really important that everyone's story is captured. And so these are some solutions that we have for that. We now want to open up the floor for any questions that folks may have. Been talking a lot, but we want to hear from you all about questions you have, concerns, comments, sentiments about this whole project. Let's see if anyone's has any questions. Lauren, are we seeing any questions on the Facebook side of things?
Nope, I'm not seeing anything that's come in.
Okay. And that's totally okay. I know that that was a lot of information that came your way. If by the end of this, you didn't have a question, but you think of something at 2 o'clock in the morning, that would be me. Feel free to contact us. So a good email for us at the city is neighborhoods@cityofomaha.org, or you can give me a phone call at 402-444-5150 extension 2016. And just as a reminder, you can sign up for your oral history interview either using this tiny URL or the link that Mark sent. It takes you to the same location to sign up for your oral history interview. Let's stick around for a couple more minutes to see if there are any questions from the audience, but that concludes our presentation for this evening. Any lingering thoughts from the team at all? Tiff, Mark?
I just wanted to throw in there, I threw this in the chat as well, but our emails are our NPHM staff, National Public Housing Museum staff emails are also in that sign up link. There's a little bit of introduction as well as our emails. So if you click the sign up link, but you're not ready to sign up, you can also just click it and see our emails and follow up with us that way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tiff, for that. All right, everyone, we thank you so much for those of you who were able to join us this evening and to those of you who will be watching this in the very near future. We are very excited about this project, what it means for the Omaha community, specifically folks at Spencer Homes and Southside Terrace, and we are so excited to hear all of your stories. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.